Hello everyone, my name is Seth, and today I want to give you my review of Star Wars Jedi Survivor. So Star Wars Jedi Survivor is the sequel to Jedi Fallen Order, which came out in 2019. Jedi Survivor came out just a couple weeks ago, and I was so excited for this. This was like one of the games I had put on my calendar. I was super excited for it. I was counting down the days till it came out. I absolutely loved the first game. It wasn't necessarily 100% my type of game because it does kind of derive a little bit from like the Soulsborne style. It's a little bit more in that vein, and those games are not for me. I do not like those games. It's just not for me. And they were able to make that first game where it was accessible to somebody like me who just loves Star Wars, but wants to get into this game, maybe not necessarily the exact type of game that I play. They made it work. I really, really loved the first game, and so I was so excited to see what they would do here for the second game. But before I go any farther, go ahead and like the video, hit subscribe, and hit the bell icon so you can receive notifications for when I upload my next video. So both of these Star Wars Jedi games, Fallen Order and now Survivor, they are made by Respawn. They are published by EA, and I know a lot of people were nervous with EA and this property, but they have done a really good job. They have kind of let Respawn do their own thing, and they have done amazing things under the game direction of Stig Amundsen. I believe that's how you pronounce his name. I apologize if that's not correct. Jedi Survivor is set 5 years after Jedi Fallen Order. We once again follow Cal Kestis, who was a survivor of Order 66. There is a book called Battle Scars, which takes place in between the two games. Gives you a little bit more context of what the crew was doing in between games. But as we start this game, the original crew that we had in the beginning, they have split up. Cal is off on his own with some new crew members he's been working with. He's still fighting the Empire. He's doing everything he can to put up a fight against the Empire. And that's where we catch up with him. And in the beginning, you meet a new character that will come with you the rest of the journey, Bo Dakuna. Cal is very, I guess, discouraged about how little he seems to be making a difference. He's fighting so hard, and he's taking all of these Imperials down, and he's doing everything he can, and it just seems like each and every day the Empire continues to grow stronger and stronger. Through his journey, he ends up stumbling upon an old High Republic Jedi who was in a back tank, basically in stasis for like 200 years. He gets out of the back tank. He feels betrayed by his Jedi Order. He is just in complete shock that the Jedi have fallen and allowed Empire to take over, and he bleeds his lightsaber crystal, and you kind of have an idea right from then and there that he's going to be one of the antagonists, and you kind of see that in some of the trailers. And so from there, the whole story kind of revolves around this planet called Tanalorr. It's a planet that Dagan Gera discovered back in the day, and it's really difficult to get to. You have to have a compass. Like, it's very specific. You basically, if you try to get there without knowing exactly what you're doing, you won't make it. And so the whole plot kind of revolves around one, trying to get there, but also trying to stop Dagan from establishing some sort of corrupted Jedi Order along with the Bedlam Raiders, which is another force that you fight in this. I think that's one thing that they do really improve on in this game, is they give you a lot more variety of enemies to fight. You got the Bedlam Raiders, who have Some have like their electro staves and blasters. Then they have this army of reprogrammed droids from the Clone Wars. And then you still have the Imperials that you fight. And there's just a wide variety of enemies. And they just kind of take it up a notch. And I think that's a good description of what they do in this game, is they really just kind of take everything up a notch. The gameplay is familiar if you've played the first one. It is an action adventure, and I'll also add platformer to the end of that. An action adventure platformer, because there's a ton of platforming, a lot more than I was expecting, but I think it absolutely works. The way that they utilized Cal's powers and his movement and just the environments, it just really works, and it makes everything pretty seamless. There's a couple times in the map where, I was kind of getting turned around, so that was a negative, but I never got as completely lost as I did in the first one. The map was an improvement, still not quite as good as it could have been. I would actually suggest turning on a setting. I think it's in the accessibilities where it will kind of help you a little bit with navigation. Like I mentioned at the beginning of this review, this is kind of like a Soulsborne light, so it can be a little difficult, especially on the higher difficulties. I played on Jedi Knight. It's the kind of right down the middle. It's what they set the difficulty on right there at the beginning. I always try to play a game on basically what the developers recommend, and so that's what I did, and it was challenging. I don't think anything was overly tough. There were a few times where I did get frustrated, and sometimes where I feel like the dodge timing and maybe the block timing was just maybe a little bit too unforgiving, but I really didn't get too awful frustrated with that, and I think it was a really good balance. But again, you can always bump the difficulty down anytime you need to, so I wouldn't let that scare you away from playing this. With the combat, they have, again, expanded, taken it up a notch. You now have multiple different options on how to use your lightsabers. You got the single blade, you got the double blade, you have dual wield, you have a cross guard, and then you have a blaster lightsaber kind of combo. It gives you a little bit more range, and I'm mostly stuck with the single and double blade. Maybe it's a little bit boring, but I never really got the hang of the blaster or the cross guard. I did like the dual wield every so often. It's really neat that they gave you this many options, and I think this might have some of the best lightsaber combat we've ever seen in a video game. It just really works. Kind of the flow of the battles and everything, like it works really well, and they just really nailed the lightsaber combat. It's kind of funny because the more you actually try to think like a Jedi, the better you do with the game. If you get overwhelmed or you try to rush things or you get frustrated or whatever, that really kind of seems to affect your success. So if you're just kind of calm, even-minded, you'll probably perform a lot better, which I thought was really cool. And you start this game with all the powers that Cal had at the end of the game, and I think that is just awesome. That was the best way to do it, and you still felt like you were progressing through the game, even though you already had that set of powers. There were some really good, solid boss fights. I think a couple of my favorite was maybe the second time specifically that I fought Dagan Gera. That was really cool, although his fights are very creative, especially the further you get in the game. And then the leader of the Bedlam Raiders, Ravis, I really liked his fight. I thought that was really cool. It was challenging, but I still feel like it was fair and fun. I think it was maybe the most fair and the most fun out of all of the bosses. So it's definitely one of my favorites. And another thing I have to add is I love how much customization there is with the lightsaber, with the outfits, hair, beard, everything. Like, it was so cool. Like, I love customization. I want to customize just about anything I can, and it was just so cool. Like, I loved it. As far as the story, I think the story was really well written. I really enjoyed the story. It was such a good Star Wars story. It's such a great addition to the Star Wars lore, and I'm so excited to see where they go next. I think all of the characters were really well written, especially kind of bringing them along in their story. Like, I love Cal. Cal is one of my absolute favorite Star Wars characters after this game. I just really appreciate everything they've done with him, and Cameron Monaghan just killed it. He was so good. I really love Marin, and I love Cal and Marin's relationship, but Marin is just such a cool character. Again, she might be one of my favorite Star Wars characters because she's a Night Sister who ends up teaming up with the Jedi, and just what she does in this is just really interesting and unique. And I really love her character, and I love Grease. I loved Grease in the first one. I love him here. He's just like the perfect kind of snarky pilot kind of character, and he fits perfectly with this crew. And he's really well performed, and he's really well written. I love that they added stuff from the High Republic. That's really cool. That's a really cool era. I'm glad they've explored that in the books and the comics, and I'm glad they're starting to incorporate that some in the video games, and that was just really cool to see. I wasn't really expecting that much of a tie to the High Republic. And I love that we kind of threw in some of the hidden path there. You hear about the hidden path in the Obi-Wan show, and it's really cool to see more of that here. My one complaint really about the story, I guess, has to deal with a little bit of Dagan. You don't really understand why he's so obsessed with Tanalorr. Mainly it's just because that he found it, discovered it, and he didn't get to fulfill his dream with it. There wasn't really clear motivation there for that, and I shouldn't really have to guess on his motivation and guess why he is so obsessed, but that's really just kind of a small part from this game that, as a whole, I really love. There was a great twist in this. I won't say that I 100% didn't see it coming, but I feel like there were some seeds planted where I'm like, I don't know. But then the twist still shocked me, especially with some of the details around it. And I loved how this game ended. It was really satisfying, and that's what you want from a video game. You want it to end and you feel satisfied. And I usually don't do this, but I'm probably going to jump back into it relatively soon, do New Game Plus. I usually don't do that so close to actually beating it, but I'm probably going to go ahead and do that. But I really do like how this ends. It's very satisfying, like I said. And I'm so excited to see the next steps in this story and what's next for these characters. So I really, really enjoyed this game. I'm going to go ahead and start talking about some spoilers, just so you're aware. I want to kind of discuss some of these things that happened in it. And so if you have not played the game, go ahead. I would say pause it, go get it, play it, put this on your watch later, come back, and we can have a discussion on the spoilers, have a discussion on the whole game. One thing I totally didn't expect was to get to play as Seer for a little bit, and the Darth Vader boss fight was so cool. It was unexpected. It wasn't maybe as big of a reveal or as big of a moment as Darth Vader showing up in the first game, but this absolutely works. It still was kind of a big shock factor. This boss fight was just really cool, and Seer dying to Darth Vader, and just that moment that Cal had with her, it was just really, really well done. And of course, what leads up to it is that Bode betrays you. Like I said earlier, I wasn't like 100% shocked that he betrayed us, because I feel like there were some seeds planted there. I didn't 100% trust him there from the beginning. Maybe that's just me as a person, and him being this brand new character who's just in with the group right away. But what did shock me was that he is a former Jedi who survived Order 66. That was a big shock to me. But his two boss fights that we had were really cool. You kind of understand his motivations. It's selfish, where he just wants to get his daughter and go, and nobody else. And I guess that's his plan. Just live there alone until both of them die. That's not really living. You know, that's just really selfish, but you at least understand where he's coming from. One thing I thought was really cool and I didn't expect was Cal embracing some of the dark side, a little bit of his darkness. I think that they kind of laid the path there from the beginning of the game, where you see his character at the beginning and kind of what he's been through, and see what he goes through the game, and some of his character decisions and everything. Like it makes sense, and I think it's really cool. And where you get that ability where you can slow down time, but you're embracing the dark side, that was just really cool. And it perfectly meshes gameplay with Star Wars lore, saying that, yeah, the dark side is definitely tempting and maybe it's easier, but that was just a really cool way to kind of explore that, especially gameplay wise. But for me personally, I kind of hope that Cal is like one of the first people to kind of actually balance light and dark. I don't know if it's possible, but that would be kind of cool to see, both from a gameplay standpoint and from a story standpoint. At the end, I don't 100% know how I feel about them kind of adopting Bode's daughter. It makes sense. I mean, of course, you had to kill him. And she seems oddly okay with it. I mean, she did kind of see that her dad was a monster, a little bit willing to kill anybody and everybody just to get what he wants. So, kind of get it. I don't think that that's a bad decision. It just kind of feels a little bit weird to me. Maybe that's just me, but maybe just a little bit weird, but still, that doesn't take away from me really enjoying the ending, enjoying where these characters are at, and feeling satisfied by the whole thing. And like I said, I can't wait to see more, specifically from Cal and from Merrin. Like, those two have been elevated to some of my favorite Star Wars characters. It's really interesting where they end this game, and I'm really excited for their next steps in their journey. So that's it. That's my review. Star Wars Jedi Survivor. Thank you so much for watching. I really appreciate it. Have you played it? Let me know in the comment section down below what you thought of it. Thank you for kind of sticking with me through this. This is really my first video game review I've done here. And if you want to see more, again, let me know in the comment section below. Go ahead and like this video, hit subscribe, and hit the bell icon so you can receive notifications when I upload my next video. And I'll see you next time.